going in, I took this from a very GM perspective, 1 to 10, who I'd want first, who I'd want second, who I'd want. While the numbers are going to come up, you'll see. We'll get into it. You'll see.
No, listen, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's what you have to do with running backs. Like, mostly you draft them when they're young, and you got to hope you got to project them to be what you want them to be. They're not going to come in, they're young guys when they come in. You need to see their future to be excited about them.
Oh,
yeah.
For sure. All right. So this is
Dakota, start us off.
This is finally we made it to the end of our 2020 player rankings. Last but not least, running backs. So this is Player Series episode 11?
13, I think.
I can't believe that I've done 13 episodes with you. I can't believe that I've been on my computer doing these FaceTimes for 13 episodes now with you and have still doing it.
Hey, man.
I would have put the over-under on 5 before I just got too frustrated with dealing with you and never doing them again.
Well, here we are. So we're cracking up. And I will say, looking into highlights and stuff, man, I'm so excited for football to start soon. Like, just watching highlights gets me juiced up, so.
I feel that. I hear that. You know what? I don't mean to be a spoiler. I should have done better. I'll take that on this one. I got no highlights.
I have one. There
you go. I can always count on you.
No highlights for me. Just came with numbers.
Yeah, see, that's fine.
That's all we need.
Keep them guessing.
All right, start it off. If we're drinking anything, what are we drinking?
So I got a small batch 4 Roses bourbon on the rocks in my University of Connecticut whiskey glass.
I'm actually a big Four Roses fan. I like Four Roses a lot. It's a good drink there. Yeah. Well, I went with, as you've seen before, cheap beer.
I have actually I have 2 drinks. I have this is part of my fall beer taste testing. This is Southern Tier Warlock Pumpkin Stout. I love my stouts, so it's a good one. And then
stout,
I have,
no pumpkin though.
Yeah. And then I have just some water and a nice post-phase and cheesesteaks cup that Tim's mom made, which is very surprised.
You know what's funny is he said he had 2 drinks, and I was immediately going to rip them thinking, oh, what do you have, a beer and then the water to chase it with it? And obviously that's what he has, but now I can't rip him because he's got a cool cup to go along with it. Did I tell you that when your sister came, she was knocking on the door, and my brother was like, oh, did somebody order food? So I was like, somebody else is going to get the door. And then she sat there for like 2 minutes. I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize it was you, but cool. I'm glad I got it. Very nice. I don't even have one yet. Who would have thought?
How do you not have it?
I don't know. Clearly we have some issues. I got to talk to my assistant or something.
All right. So as usual, we'll start with our guests. So as again, this is our top 10 running backs, and Nick with leadoff batter. What do we got?
All right. So I talked to Dakota about this a little bit earlier. My 10 spot is cycled through 3 guys. I'll let you know that one of these 3 guys is on a lot of lists I saw, but I just can't get behind them. And when I took the 3 of these guys, I put them in a pool. I said, who do I feel like going into this year shows me that they have the best opportunity to prove me right that they're a top 10 running back? And number 10, I went with the youngest guy on my list, Josh Jacobs, at number 10.
Okay.
I like it. He had he's not on my list, but he definitely was in the conversation. I went with more established guys, but I would like to hear your reasonings on it.
He's number 11 on my list.
So I'm going to – sorry. So it helps, I think, if I tell you who 11 – so 11 and 12 for me were Leonard Fournette and Joe Mixon.
Okay.
And I wanted to have Mixon on the list. I've seen Mixon at 6, at 7 in a lot of places. I think he is quietly – not totally loved. He's back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He does produce, so I'll give him that. He's on a terrible team and still putting up decent numbers.
That's true.
But if I'm going to put my faith in one of those 3 guys, I like Jacobs' line better. I like the team he has around him better. And I'm not ready to put all this faith that Joe Burrow is going to go turn around the Bengals. And Leonard Fournette, he didn't even have his 5th-year option picked up, so it's hard to call you a top 10 running back when a team doesn't even want you for their 5th year. And he just doesn't score enough. For a guy with his strength, size, and speed, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. It's not enough for me.
Yeah.
The production, he's kind of like a Jadeveon Clowney. Huge guy, monster in college, monster. And that
Okay.
he just
I actually like that comparison. That comparison's pretty good.
yeah, and he's just let me down in the pros. You know, when I look at a guy his side, his ability. I mean, he even had 76 receptions last year, but no touchdowns. And it's like, I wonder where is that gear? I wanted him to be there. I had him in there, but at the end of the day, Jacobs gave me 1,100 yards in only 13 games last year, and I just feel like there's way more upside with him, and I like his line better.
So, Dakota, before you chime in here, I want to skip ahead. I will actually go to my 10 because I think it actually is a perfect transition from where Nick was saying.
Okay.
I went with a 10, Leonard Fournette, actually.
Oh.
Okay.
Jacobs was in that conversation. Like I said, my 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I could have switched in whatever order. They're in their own tier. You mentioned the 76 receptions, which I was actually leaning on as a positive point. That's more than twice as much as any other year he's had in receptions. He did have 0 touchdowns and he only had 3 rushing touchdowns. I get that. But he was on – I know – like the Jaguars are a terrible team. They're a horrible team. They've got no defense. Gardner Minshew is not an NFL quarterback. Their offensive line is not very good. Their offense in general is not very good. The guy, though, projecting-wise – and here's the main thing. Out of my top 10, he's the one guy I don't expect to finish the year on his team. I expect the Jaguars to get rid of him. I think that's when they decline the 5th-year option. Unless you're an idiot, you trade Leonard Fournette. Like, just get whatever you can from him. You clearly have no interest in bringing him back.
Yeah.
If anything, Fournette, he's going to have a contract. You know, it's his contract year for him. He's on a horrible team, which is hard to put up numbers when you're running back because it's not like you're a wide receiver quarterback and you're in garbage time where they're just throwing and just accumulating stats. Running backs usually accumulate yards and stats when they're winning and they're just burning the clock.
Right.
I thought your Clowney point was actually on point, one I didn't think about. But, yeah, he's a ton of potential. Superstar recruit in high school. Top-notch draft prospect. He was 4th overall pick. He's got the size, the speed, the ability. I think he just needs a new environment. I think the Jaguars are a train wreck. They who I think are going to be the worst team in the NFL this year by far. I do expect Fournette to be traded, but he's still got so much talent. He, like I said, he had the 76 receptions. He went for over 500 yards receiving. He went for over 1,100 yards rushing on a horrible team. That's pretty impressive. Considering you have quarterback just embarrassments between just whoever the Jaguars are throwing out there now. I couldn't, take it away from him. Obviously, he's had some up and down years, but I think his best years are still in front of him. I think they're going to be on a different team, but I still think his best years are in front of him. That's why I made my top 10. But
and
that was my point.
I think that's fair, and that's why I'm at number 11. It's not that I dislike him.
Listen, I see where you're coming with Jacobs. I do. I think Jacobs has a high ceiling too. He is my 11 guy. My 11 and 12, I think, was Jacobs, and then I still like Gurley. I think Gurley's still got something. I think a new team will help him. I wanted to put him in top 10, but I couldn't. I think guys like Fournette have higher upside than Gurley does, so that's why I had to have him at the outside. But Fournette's potential and his upside still keep him as a top 10 running back, and I still think he has got the skills and ability to be a top 10 running back on any given year.
I hear it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I've never thought of that comparison of Clowney and Fournette, but it really is.
It hits home. It's good. Super athletes, super size, high draft picks. They haven't been bad. I wouldn't say either of them have been a bust, but neither of them have given you what you expect.
I wouldn't say Fournette was a bust, but he was taken 4th overall. You would have thought, they get a little more out of him. It just seems like the production, 1,000 yards is definitely impressive, but it's 1,000 yards where? You still only had 3 touchdowns. The Jaguars didn't win many games. It's like
they were also both number 1 overall recruits out of high school, any position.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they went to college after their freshman year, people were saying, "Why did they have to stay in college for 3 years? This guy could go to the NFL right now."
Mm-hmm.
And then they went to the NFL, and they both haven't had poor careers. But when you set the bar where you do with the two of them, it just leaves a lot to be desired.
No, I agree. That's why I'd be stunned if Fournette finished this year with the Jaguars, especially when you mentioned the 5th year being declined. There's no reason not to trade him. The team's going to suck. They have no.
He's not going back.
Of course, he's not going back. They're going to be awful. I would say, I am a big supporter of running backs are worth the money, but on good teams. Bad teams should never invest in a running back. It just doesn't make sense because you have so many other holes and so many other problems that running backs are the cherry on top of the sundae, but you got to build the sundae first. They're not the ice cream. They're the ones that make you from a good team to a great team. They don't take a bad team and make them good.
Right.
You said he declined the 5th-year option, so is this he's played
This is his
This
4th
is
year.
last year. Yeah, he's a free agent after this year. That's why I would be stunned if he doesn't get traded. They'd be idiots not to trade him. But
Fair
go ahead, Dakota. Go.
Yeah. So my number 10, this guy was he moved around the most between like 7 and like 12 in my list. Then I ended up choosing him over, say, Jacobs, Fournette, Gurley, and Sanders, Eckler even. So I went Chris Carson of the Seahawks at number 10.
Okay.
I feel like I was surprised when I saw him on the top 100. Because, I mean, I knew he was like, a hard runner, a beast, but I never really thought, wow, Chris Carson's a top back in the league. And then you kind of look at what he's been able to do, and it's like, I mean, there's one thing I saw. He's had back-to-back years. He's had his scrimmage yards has been over 1,400, and he's had over 9 touchdowns back-to-back years and only 15 starts averaged in those years. So, I mean, the guy produces numbers. I mean, I feel like the Seahawks always have a kind of a power back, whether it was Lynch, once upon a time Sean Alexander, and now, Chris Carson seems to be their guy. But, I mean, even before, like, he had a fractured hip that he had, like, I think 2 or 3 games left in the season. And he still was on pace for, like, 1,500 yards or something like that. So,
See, one thing I will cut you off here because I was gonna
as you do.
Carson, I love to. I was going to put Carson in the top 10, but there's one number.
Mm-hmm.
There's one number that kept him out of my top 10.
Okay.
Yep, he just gives it away. He's like the Pope, Mother Teresa. He just gives for the less fortunate. He just loves to give away. 7 fumbles is disgusting.
It is bad.
He was number 1 running back in fumbles. The number 2 guy had 4. He had nearly double the number 2 guy. I saw that number. I couldn't even think to put him in my top 10.
I'll tell you both that he comes up soon. There's one person.
No, he didn't make my list.
He made mine. It's not high. He made mine,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll get to why later. There's somebody who's going to come up who might surprise you a little bit that he's at 9, but there's a reason in the separation of the two of them.
Okay, well here you caught my interest. So Nick, let me hear your number 9.
Yeah, we'll go right into it because I was pretty much done with Carson there.
So number 9, he's a guy who I think, when healthy, is about 5th overall. Okay, when he is at his best, I think he's about the 5th best running back in the NFL. The problem is the guy hasn't been healthy. Okay, and that's what's keeping him so low on my board. But number 9, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings, Dalvin Cook.
See, my ranking impacted injuries as well, but I had him higher than 9. But go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'll get to him later.
I think, he's a great producer. Trust me, when he's on the field, and that's why I said I think if you took and you said, you're going to get 16 games out of these guys, he's number 5 for me.
Mm-hmm.
Rookie year starts off great, gets injured. Second year, misses a ton of games. Last year, he comes back, plays most of the season, and he's 13 touchdowns, 1,100 yards, 500 receiving yards.
Yeah.
That's great statistically. But, again, it comes to being, while Chris Carson, we just talked about, he fumbles a lot, which, hint, he's coming up soon.
Yeah.
He's playing in the game. That's why he's fumbling. He's there. He's consistently putting up numbers.
But hold on. Jameis Winston went out and played every game. That doesn't mean he was doing great. He was putting up plenty of numbers. That doesn't mean he was doing great either. I hear where you're coming from. I find it hard to believe that Carson's better than Dalvin Cook. I understand where you're coming with injuries and everything. Carson had his, hip injury, and he puts the ball on the carpet all the time, man. That's way too much. 7's a lot.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. And again, I took the stance of I'll take the guy who I have a better feeling is going to play on for a spot that gets hurt as much as it does. The reason people don't pay running backs is their durability concern. And if you're only 26 and you're already a durability concern for me, you're not a guy I want to put a franchise around. I can get you to stop fumbling, but I can't get you to stop getting hurt and never being on the field for me.
Yeah. No, listen, I hear you. I see where you're coming from. I think Dalvin Cook, I understand the injury thing, but when he's healthy and he's on the field, he is
For
a
sure.
top 5 talent.
No, for sure. That's the first thing I said. When healthy, if you told me I was going to get 16 games guaranteed, real quick look, I think I'd have him at 5. I think if I knew if I was going to get a full season, I think I'd have him at 5.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have him different on my list. We'll get to him later. But number 9, I went with not a guy I honestly am a huge fan of. He's never really blown me away. I've never bought him the hype, but I can't ignore the 19 touchdowns he had last year. I think that, well, the one thing that I think helped him is he was basically a committee running back, and then Williams got hurt, and he was able just to thrive off of the opportunity that came about. Rodgers is definitely not the same Rodgers of prime, but he's still a very good quarterback that helps the passing game, and I think that helps Aaron Jones as well, who came in at 9 for me.
That's interesting, Tim. I had Aaron Jones at 9 as well.
Oh my God! You know when me and him are agreeing, something's wrong. There must be a full moon.
I was telling Nick, I said there was a player, like before you got here, I was like, there's a player on my list that I really didn't consider, and then I was looking at stats and I said, holy fuck, 19 total touchdowns. I can't ignore that. Like,
I think, well, I mean, he was tied for number 1 with most total touchdowns with, I'm assuming, all of our number 1 running back. So that's something, you can't just ignore.
Yeah.
I know it's a good system. I know he plays next to Aaron Rodgers, and I know his running back committee guy got hurt. So that gave him opportunities than probably was going to be originally there. But, I mean, Rodgers isn't going anywhere. I'm faith in the offense. I don't know why they chose to draft A.J. Dillon.
I was going to say, they drafted a backup running back to replace him eventually. Like,
that's just idiotic team building there. But, you know what? I still think he's the number 1. If anything, then – you know what? Dillon will probably just take Williams' role and it'll be a committee thing. I think Jones has done enough to earn himself a number 1 running back slot.
I mean, 1,500 yards from scrimmage, a 4.6 yard per carry when he's rushing.
He's good. No, he's a good guy.
16 rushing touchdowns. Like, he's
now the offensive line. They do have a solid, and that's
solid, but it's not the best.
Well, now they lost Bulaga this past year, so that hurts. But they still have a solid offensive line. I still think they're going to run the ball really well. LaFleur's in that McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Zach Taylor coaching tree kind of where he's all about running the ball with all their fakes and options and setting up the pass with the run. So I don't see him getting away from the running game, but who knows? You draft A.J. Dillon and don't draft a wide receiver. I don't know what the hell the Packers are doing. So,
I also didn't realize he was 5'9". Probably the shortest running back on my list, but.
Yeah.
Fun fact. So, all right, on to number 8. What do we got?
So number 8, I've pretty much put the cat out of the bag at this point. But number 8, I have Chris Carson.
Fair enough.
Okay.
I think that it's always tough to evaluate the guys who play on the West Coast. You don't get a lot of, you don't see them very, and that's for every sport across the board. You don't get to see them that often. They play so many late games, or they're a blackout game. You don't get to see them. I think that he doesn't get enough credit for the Seahawks rushing attack being as strong as it is. I think that we all talk about how great Russell Wilson is and how much he brings to it, which he does, and he deserves a lot of credit for it. But I think when you look at, Chris Carson, and we talked about the fumbles, and I get it. Trust me, that was like that was tough. That's tough for me. But 1,200 yards rushing last year with another 266 receiving, 1,150 yards rushing in, 2018.
Yeah.
He produces, and while he's fumbling, I don't think that his ceiling is higher than Dalvin Cook's by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's also important not to always just pretend that a player is their ceiling. And what I'm getting consistently out of Chris Carson is more than I'm getting out of Dalvin Cook just because his availability is better. It's a slight edge, and I still gotta lean on that GM side of running backs are risky. It's a very risky position. That's why nobody wants to pay him. That's why every team has 3 or 4 of them. And I feel better getting a veteran, getting a running back coach to get Chris Carson to hang on to the ball more than I want to kind of roll the dice and hope that Dalvin Cook is going to stay
healthy. I like your points that you made about Chris Carson. I obviously, mentioned I don't have him on my list. The fumbles weren't something I could get past. I just wanted to quickly go into this because my number 8 intrigues me because you mentioned him earlier. And I was surprised that I don't think either of you have him on his list from what I've heard. I went at number 8. I went with Joe Mixon.
Tim, did you steal my list? I have Joe Mixon at number 8.
I'm starting to. I just figured after 13 episodes together, you're starting to finally catch on to success.
I build up.
Just do whatever Tim does.
I build up an introduction for these players, and then when you steal them from me, it's like, what do I do now? Please go ahead, go tell me about Mr. Mixon, who I'm a big fan of.
I will. All right. So obviously, Mixon's on a horrific team. They are the worst team in football. Yeah. I obviously think they're going to be better this year. I mean, it sounds like I have more faith in Burrow and
Joe.
I have more faith in Burrow than I think Nick does, but you got to look at more. It's more than Burrow. They got Jonah Williams this year, was their first round pick last year. They drafted a couple wide receivers. Their offensive line will be better. Their offensive line was easily the worst in football last year, so they have to be better. But you look at the numbers between Carson and Mixon. Carson had 100 more yards rushing. Mixon had like 20 more yards receiving. But you know what? He had 0 fumbles, and Chris Carson had 7. And Chris Carson's running with Russell Wilson on the option. And Joe Mixon's running behind nothing. A.J. Green didn't even play last year. He's the only name I think anyone could name off the Cincinnati Bengals. He's a young guy still. He's got great athletic ability. I think he's starting to really – he's getting more of becoming a receiving back, more of a dual threat. I think his ceiling's a lot higher. It almost goes back to what I was thinking with Fournette, because I think Mixon and Fournette in the same tree. They're same, like, incredible athletes, great size, great skill. They're both on terrible teams. I think Fournette is going to leave the Jaguars this year, so my projection of him is on a new team doing really well. Mixon, I think, will stay. I think the Bengals will build around him and Joe Burrow, and I think it'll be a nice basis. But I like what I've seen from Mixon. He went over 1,100 yards the last 2 years with, you could say, the worst team in the last 2 years. It's hard to put up stats as a running back on an awful team. I think running backs are worth the money, but if you're a good team. When you're a bad team, there's no point in paying a running back because – unless you have everything else shored up, there's no point in, spending all this money on them. But Mixon's a guy that I think is going to get better. I think as the Bengals get better, he'll get better.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one thing that I saw that was really striking is his final 8 games, he had 994 total yards and 5 touchdowns. And, I mean, not always huge on the whole, like, well, what if you had that pace? Because the Bengals kind of changed some of the way they were running the ball. But if he had played 8 more games like he was playing at the end of the season, would have been on pace for 1,900 total yards and 10 scores. So, like, he's got it. And I was texting Nick earlier. I said, would it be foolish for me to put Le'Veon Bell on this list? Because, Tim, you and I talked about how much we think Le'Veon Bell is, like, patience, his awareness, his vision was so great when he was in his prime. And I see a lot of that in Mixon. Like, you watch some of his tapes, and it's like he makes a decision and he goes right there. His jump cut's pretty good. He's strong too. Like, when you're young and they teach, you keep chopping your feet. Like, he never stops running.
He's a good player. He's really good. I think he's going to get better is why I had him higher on my list. And since you mentioned him, and I don't think any of us have him in his list, Bell is literally the epitome of what I mean by running backs are worth their money, not on bad teams though. Bell is such a bad contract on the Jets. But if you think about it, I mean, we'll get to it later, but my top 2 guys on this list are the top 2 highest paid running backs in the league, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I'm sure they're the top 2 guys on your list too, or in the top 3, is that teams that are ready to win, that pay out for – like a running back can make a good team great. They're half of your offense. Quarterback controls the passing game. The running back controls the running game. The offensive line obviously plays into it, but same with the passing game. It really comes down. If you have a better running back who can just make more plays than the other guy, like, you're just gonna have a better, rushing attack.
So this is all.
I said that to Dakota earlier. I said when he said thing about Le'Veon Bell, I said if he was still on the same Pittsburgh team, absolutely, I'd feel when it was the Killer Bees, for sure. But I have no faith in the Jets. I feel like his career.
Him not in the top 10 is not really a slight at him. It's that I have no faith in his future. I know he's not going anywhere. I don't think the Jets are going to make the most out of him. I think he's still a top 10 running back talent-wise, but his team sucks, and their system sucks, and they have no plan to use him.
Gets through it, is on his feet. Again, the strong legs, gets past him, outrunning a cornerback all the way down the field, still running, takes Stephon Gilmore to take him down.
My last thing before we let Nick get to number 7 is that name me another 2-win team that had a running back go for over 1,100 yards.
Right?
It just doesn't make sense. It's like
maybe the Jaguars.
They don't coordinate. When you're a horrible team and win 2 games, your running back usually suffers a lot too.
Yeah. And then here's the last one.
Well,
Just takes a nice ready for this little jump cover here.
Oh, that's better blocking.
And then him, stiff arm. Nope, I'm gonna keep going. He's just so powerful, but he's like it's all contained. He's like,
yeah.
I don't know. I just see a lot of Lev Bell in him, and I hope I hope the Bengals have some positivity with Burrows now. But I don't know.
I agree.
I think he's great.
Listen, it wasn't a slight against him. I mean, I told you he's like number 12 for me,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And I think had he played on a team I actually wanted to watch play football, maybe I would have him higher.
That's the key part. That's the key part.
It's tough when you have a guy who's on a team that's that bad. Even watching those highlights, while he individually is so talented, when your highlights have your lineman looking back at you and you have to break 6 tackles, it's just hard for me to project that you're going to have great numbers again.
It's fair. It's fair.
I agree and understand your reasoning. That's good. But you know what? I think I have more faith in Burrow than you do. But I think Burrow will be pretty good. I mean, their team's going to get a lot better. If you think about it, AJ Green didn't play. He's going to play this year. Jonah Williams is going to play this year. They drafted a couple wide receivers. You got Mixon already. Burrow's going to come in. It's not just Burrow. They have a lot of good stuff coming for them this year. But,
yeah,
I mean, we'll see. I like Mixon. I think he's got the talent and the ability. I'm hoping that the Cincinnati can build a team around him and, make the most of it so it doesn't become a Fournette situation because at this point, I think Fournette is dead and gone, is leaving. If he doesn't get traded this year, then the Jaguars are foolish. He's leaving in free agency, but we'll leave it at that. But what do we got at number 7?
So number 7 was a guy I did have at number 9, but I could not get away from the 19 touchdowns. I just couldn't. I felt like that was I felt like it was too disrespectful to have him that low.
Yeah.
I also am very big on like what is your trend, and he's played 3 seasons. Each season, his total yards has increased 500 a year. So I'm seeing a guy he's getting his feet underneath him. He's understanding the system better, and there's something about that amount of productivity. And also he tied Nick Chubb for most broken tackles in the NFL for running backs. Guys got power. Guys can punch it in. Drafting A.J. Dillon hurt. Obviously that
didn't make sense.
It just shows that you're not committed. It shows that
exactly.
The two best players on their team are Aaron and Aaron, and they drafted their replacements in the first 2 rounds. And I just don't get that.
I don't understand what you're thinking. If Rodgers is still throwing and still doing well, and Aaron Jones went for 19 touchdowns, I don't know if I'm replacing them.
Yeah, I look at that number, and there's no way to have a hollow 19 touchdowns. It's not a possible that type of a hollow stat.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. That's all. I mean, I had him on my top 10 list too. I was thinking the same thing that you were thinking.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's see. All right. So number 7, I actually went with a guy. He's never rushed for more than 1,000 yards in a single season, but he's still been a Pro Bowler every single year he's been in the NFL.
Oh, I had him here and I moved him.
God damn it, Tim.
Listen.
Go ahead. Let me hear it because I'm probably the same number 7.
See, you're just excited because I can put out all the good facts and points, and you can just piggyback off them because we have the same ranking. But, so he's the second best dual threat running back in the league. I would have said he was number 1 up until last year. Like I said, he's never gone for over 1,000 rushing yards, but he's also gone for no less than 533 passing yards every single year he's been in the league. I'm going to go with the dual threat ability. I'm going with Kamara.
Yeah, I also had Alvin Kamara at 7. So
yeah, offensive rookie of the year, 3-time Pro Bowler. I think he does so much in the passing and the rushing game for that team. He's not the main rusher, but he went for 800 yards. Considering where they play him, he mostly plays in the slot and lined up as a wide receiver more than anything. So get 800 yards rushing from him when Mark Ingram left was pretty impressive.
I was surprised that when I was looking at his stats, he never had over 900 yards rushing.
Look at his receiving stats.
Well, yeah,
he does
it all.
That comes close to nearly like he's like 1,800 yards
Well,
scrimmage yards every year, but doesn't run for more
Well,
than
see,
1,000.
you say that. You say so last year he had 797 rushing yards, but he was averaging 4.7 yards a carry. So, like, if he had more volume carries, he would have had over 1,000 yards.
His rookie year, he led the league in yards per attempt with 6.1.
Yeah, I see that now. Damn.
Well, now that you see it, because I just
that's why I moved him out of this slot into a higher position. A lot of the points you guys are making, I had him there honestly because I saw the never over 1,000. I looked a little more to the body of work. I'll get to later, but I hear you.
We're probably thinking the same thing, but I do have one of the guys that you already mentioned a little bit higher. So I think that was the only difference in our list.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, listen, the guy's been a stud since he's entered the league. I think it helps a lot that he plays in an offense where Michael Thomas and Drew Brees are on his team, and the offensive line is as good as they are. But at the same time, he hasn't missed a beat. He's done everything. He's done more than what they've possibly asked. I think he's really good. I think he's, Latavius Murray was fine, but I think they would really benefit by bringing in a better quality number one running back, like when they had Ingram there, and that's when he really flourished.
Yeah.
But, I put Kamara at 7. He also has got he had injuries this year. He had the knee injury because I made a fantasy bet this year on me and this other guy having a shaving down to a mustache. And, of course, I had Kamara, and he decided to get hurt and not play the week that I make the bet. So,
nice.
That one hurt me a little bit.
He also, last year he also had – so he's made the Pro Bowl all 3 years of his career, but last year he had 14 rushing touchdowns and 4 receiving touchdowns. So
he gets in the end zone. Man.
Yeah, I think the problem was, like, he got hurt. I don't think he played let's see. He played in 14 games, so.
How many touchdowns did he have last year?
He had 14 rushing touchdowns last year.
No, he didn't. That was 2018 there, guy.
Oh, I meant last year. Okay, so 2018 he had 14. 2019 he had
5.
But
can we mute you? You're not bringing much to this table. You're bringing stats up from 2018.
I'm sorry. I'm the potatoes and the vegetables of this conversation. I'm helping fill your plate right now.
Oh, okay. So you're the boring stuff that everyone scrapes off to the end. Sounds about right. Good. With that said, let's go on to number 6.
Yeah, let's just keep going.
Don't give Dakota more time than needed.
So number 6. I mentioned him earlier. He was tied for most broken tackles in the NFL with Aaron Jones last year, 32 broken tackles. Massive yards on the ground. Just under 1,500, 8 touchdowns, almost 300 receiving yards. And his rookie year, he was only 4 yards away from 1,000. He's at 5.1 yards per carry career average, and he is the lead back for the Cleveland Browns, Nick Chubb. And I love what he's producing. I thought in college it was kind of tough that he had Tony Michel with him at Georgia. He had kind of like do that little split time thing.
Georgia,
I think that his position.
He had the injury too. The injury really hurt him.
And I think what's going to keep him from my number 5 and why he was at number 6 is Kareem Hunt still on that roster. And when Kareem Hunt came back at the end of the year last year, Nick Chubb's production went down. He had, I think, only 2 of the last 6 games he went over 100 yards. And I think that Kamara, what I get from Kamara, which we just talked about a minute ago, I have a better feeling that he's going to be featured. Plus, I like the O-line better. We'll get to that. But Nick Chubb, I got to tell you, I'm super impressed with what he's shown in the NFL so far. If he puts up another 1,500 rush yard season, very good chance, he's in the top 5 next year, if not top 4.
Like you said, he had 900. He almost had 1,000 rushing yards. He had 8 touchdowns in only 9 starts, and he was sharing time with Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson. So, you could tell the talent was there right away.
Stud.
We'll see him later in the list, but
pretty soon. But yeah.
Number 6, I went one of Nick's guys, and you know what? Normally I do ding on injury because I do kind of, as everyone knows in my 3 pillars, it's last year, next year, and if I started my team with you. And considering he's only played 29 out of his 48 possible games in his 3-year career, is eye-opening. But you know what? The eye test, he is still a top 5 running back when I see him out there. And I have faith because he's still young. It's not like he's older and he's getting these injuries. He's still young. The injuries he suffered were his rookie year and his second year in the league. So I went with the Minnesota guy. I went with Dalvin Cook.
It's not fun when we agree, Tim. And at number 6, I also had Dalvin Cook.
I'm
I'm starting to think our list is going to be exactly the same from here on out.
I just can't believe it took you 13 episodes to start catching on to what the right list was.
I'm going to be done this beer by the next guy because that's how annoyed I am that you're matching with me.
Well, it's a win-win for everyone. But, I mean, listen, Cousins gets the noise because he makes all the money, but that offense runs through Cook. Everyone knows that. You know, you had Diggs and Thielen ripping Cousins in the middle of the season up until they played the Eagles, and that solves all quarterback and offensive woes. But this offense, it runs through Cook. Cook never missed a beat last year. He played 14 games. He was still a Pro Bowler. You know, over 1,100 yards. He's a dual threat too. You had over 500 yards receiving and over 50 receptions. He didn't get as many, you know, he had 13 rushing touchdowns, but receiving touchdowns, he didn't give him many. But I think on the field, when he's playing, he is a top 5 talent. It's on the field and playing his heart. And I understand where you're coming from with Nick, but I still think that his talent alone was something I had to keep. And he's young. That's my main argument against his injuries is that he's still young. Like, you know, he could still, if he puts together a couple of years and stays healthy, no one will even remember the injuries.
I think
for sure.
I think kind of what I was looking at was like he did play. Besides the 2 games he missed, he was pretty healthy that whole year, and he's as far as I know healthy going into this year. So that's where I kind of moved him up because I probably would have put him right at 9 if there were still like super serious concerns as of right now. I mean, I still think he's kind of fragile. But I think like the talent, like you guys were saying, is like
my thing is when you have an offense with Thielen, Diggs, and Kirk Cousins, who you gave all the money in the world to, and you're a fool to think that offense doesn't run through Dalvin Cook. Like it doesn't matter who's out there on wide receiver, quarterback. That offense runs through Dalvin Cook because he's the best player on their offense and arguably on their team.
You know, he's a stud. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I said earlier. If you told me he was going to be healthy for all 16, I think I have him at number 5.
I agree. You know what? Dalvin Cook reminds me of like when I say like he takes running backs are bad contracts on bad teams, but he can take a good team to great. Dalvin Cook, when he's healthy, he takes that Vikings team from good to, I won't say great, but better than what they can be. Kirk Cousins needs a running back like Dalvin Cook to lean on. He's not a quarterback who can just sling it out regardless of who's around him. He needs that running game to be the priority for him to succeed. All right. Well, with that said, it's time to crack that top 5.
Top 5.
So number 5. I felt like it was disrespectful to have somebody who's made the Pro Bowl every year of their career not be in the top 5 at their position. His numbers last year didn't really jump off the page for me. It did take a dip in rushing yards, touchdowns, receiving yards after Mark Ingram left. He did play through injury last year, and I think that's important to know. He wasn't healthy, but he was still battling.
Without a doubt, yeah.
So he's still battling. The Saints added Emmanuel Sanders, and they may have one of the best O-lines in football. So when I take all that into consideration, you know, I'm going into a year, and I had to put my money on who's going to be the Pro Bowl running back, you know, who's going to be in this team, who's got the best chance to finish in the top 5. I feel like Alvin Kamara would be one of the safest bets to finish in the top 5 when I put all those factors together, especially in an off season where you're not getting a lot of time with your team. You got Drew Brees at the helm. You got Sean Payton. You got one of the best lines in football. I mean, he's got all the protective factors as a running back that you want to have in order to have a productive season. And for that reason, I had to keep him in the top 5.
Sure. Listen, I won't give you many arguments on that one. He could have easily been top 5.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything against him. I just like the guys ahead of him a little bit better. I thought that last year was a big part of that because my number 5 guy was, I mean, he was second in the league in rushing. Yeah, it's hard to take away. He ran for nearly 1,500 yards. I think he's a superstar. It was his second year in the league, and he already went for nearly 1,500. We mentioned the Kareem Hunt thing, which I thought was pretty interesting, and I let it go because I wanted to save it for this point because I don't think Kareem Hunt hurts him or gets in his way. I think of it almost like you do with Mark Ingram and Kamara. Kareem Hunt is such a good receiving threat, and don't get me wrong, he can run the ball well too. He won the league rushing title a couple years ago. But I think it would be more beneficial for the Browns to find a way to keep Chubb and Hunt on the field together, like the Saints did with Kamara and Ingram, and he play off it. Hunt is a great receiving threat out of the option. He probably realizes, his career took a downward spiral that he's still trying to recover from. But I think him playing second fiddle and being that receiving option, and Chubb can just run in between the tackles and be dominating on the rushing side of it. It's a great mixture. I think they'll help each other. So 5 I went with Chubb, young guy, second year in the league. I think he's only getting better. He's a freak of an athlete. Like, this guy doesn't look like he's the same species as I am. I refuse to think that me and him are both the same species because I can't do or look like he does.
Yeah, well, two things. So one, I also had Nick Chubb at 5.
God, you suck.
Shocker.
Did you steal my list? Can I get a copyright on this?
But
at least give me a works cited notation on it.
But before you cut into Chubb at 5, I wanted to say one last thing about Kamara. That was the one thing that I just felt last year. He was just a little inconsistent, and I don't know if it was because a lot of people looked at his fantasy numbers and how they weren't as great as he usually is, but it seemed like just some games he wasn't as effective, and whether that was him learning to play without what's his name, the guy on the Mark Ingram, yeah. And not to say his backup was a slouch, but getting to be fully integrated in that number 1 RB slot definitely, I think, took a little bit of a learning for him. But like you said, Nick, I think he's still talent-wise definitely top 5. I mean, came out of nowhere as a rookie and he can do it all. But then, yeah, like literally what Tim was saying about Chubb though is like, and I've tried to be reluctant on players that only played a year or two, but like he's scary. Like I wouldn't want to try and tackle him. It's
absolutely not. I think Hunt playing next to him helps him. I think Chubb doesn't have to worry about going out for pass because nowadays your running back has to go out for a pass or two every game. Chubb never has to worry about that as long as Hunt's on the team because Hunt's a much better receiving threat. And you know what? It'd probably benefit Hunt to, slide into a backer bowl and, ease into things again, fix his public image, catch a couple passes, be that second fiddle on a, decent Browns team or a good Browns team and see where it takes you next time. Maybe you get another lead role that way. I think it helps him to be the second fiddle. And I could not picture two guys that will fit better. Hunt's a great receiving threat, and Chubb is just a beast when it comes to running.
And you even look at it, like Chubb had, 36 receptions. So it's like defenses have to say, oh, great, this fucking monster is still going to go out wide at some point. Like, he could still catch the ball. Like, so, I think he's great. And he's more of an old school running back, I would say, more of like between the tackles, I'm going to run you over. But, like Nick was saying, them Georgia running backs are a different breed. I think Todd Gurley was from Georgia too. So
yes, he was.
Yeah. Listen, you look at Nick Chubb, he doesn't look like the same species.
There's someone else on my list that is definitely not from Earth, but we can get to him.
Funny you say that because
on to number 4. Yeah.
So number 4 is the all-time high school leading rusher. He had 12,000 rushing yards in high school.
And what, 4 years?
Which is ridiculous.
What's that average? 3 years, 3,000 a year?
his senior year had 55 touchdowns in high school football. He had 153 touchdowns in his high school career.
Wow.
And while he's known to be as big and large as he is, in high school he also ran track. He ran an 11:11 in the 100-meter dash.
Okay? I think we have the same guy, and I like this build-up.
At number 4, one of the prides of Alabama, I'll go with Derrick Henry, running back for the
I also had
Titans.
King Henry at number 4 too.
Yeah. I gotta say, my build-up wasn't nearly as good as yours.
I didn't have that.
Keep going, Nick. Keep going. Keep going.
So, and I'm not even gonna bring up when he was at Alabama. I watch a lot of college sports really closely. I follow a lot of these guys' stories. I think that is always what inspires me to see why these guys play as hard as they do. Derrick Henry is actually, his parents, much like mine, were teen parents, but his parents were 15 and 16. His dad went to jail 20 times. He was in and out of jail 20 times. Raised by his grandmother, just put all of that statistic against him and just balled out his entire life. And I pull for guys like that. I love to see it.
Absolutely. I like Derrick. Obviously, he's the reigning rushing champ. I can't really follow it up too much there. You really hit the yeah. The dude's a stud. Like the Titans weren't going anywhere without him. The fact that now that they signed him, which is okay, because the fact that they signed Tannehill before him is an absolute joke. If you think that Tannehill had more to do with that offense than Derrick Henry, you're insane. The offense line, I think, will still be solid. You lose Conklin, which will hurt, but I still think Henry will be fine going forward. The guy simply cannot be tackled.
Yeah, I said that.
Like, he's almost like it doesn't matter who's his offense line or his offense is because you still have to tackle him. It doesn't matter if you have 9 guys in the box and you all beat your blocks. It doesn't matter if it looks like a Joe Mixon highlight because the guy's huge. You got to tackle him. That's tough.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, even though I literally just said I would never want to tackle Nick Chubb, I would rather tackle Nick Chubb than Derrick Henry. If I saw a 6'3", 250-pound guy running like I think he ran a 4.5 40, clocked it 21 miles an hour, I would die. I don't like, and even like Nick was saying with like, you know, stats outside the NFL with his high school stats, the season he won the Heisman with Alabama, which I think was his last season, over 2,000 yards on only 395 carries, like you can't be stopped. And I'm glad that in the NFL he was able to finally translate that because he shared, you know, carries with DeMarco Murray for I think a year or two, and then, you know, finally was that number one guy. And I still love that one picture where he's in practice. I think it was from last year, standing next to Deion Lewis, and it looks like Deion Lewis is his son, and he's at practice with them.
Yeah, he's a mean man.
It's crazy.
Honestly, I think I'd rather be hit by a car than Derrick Henry. I could roll over the hood of a car. I'm not rolling over anywhere on Derrick Henry. It's not going to go well.
But I think I read this one article where it kind of described him as a hybrid Eddie George. And I think that's a pretty fair, you know, especially the Titan connection. So
I don't think he's a hybrid anything. I think he's a freaking Mack truck.
I think he's a
runs
unique
over people.
I think he's a pretty unique specimen because I've seen running backs who are big and break tackles, but I've never seen somebody with his speed and can move with his size as large as he is. Yeah, I'm telling you, 11.11 100-yard dash. Are you even like fathoming?
That's fast.
That's a whole football field in 11 seconds.
How many running backs have we seen over 6, like even 6'2" or 6'1"? Like he's 6'3", 250. Like not normal.
Here's the ultimate sign of respect is when they beat the Patriots and then the Ravens were talking in their interviews and like, yeah, you know what? The Patriots just didn't look like they wanted to tackle Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
We want to tackle him. And then you go get just steamrolled. And like, it doesn't look like you wanted to get tackled. Yeah. Well, you didn't tackle him. It doesn't look like you wanted to. To have just in the playoffs, nonetheless, like every guy is giving you his best shot. And, like, I don't want to hear the Tannehill nonsense because I literally think it's nonsense. I think he got into an offense that was perfect to his skill set, and he had a running back that was dominant. Anyone could run off the play action with Derrick Henry. Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry, he is an offense. He is, like I said, he's a running back that took a good team. The Titans were a good team, and he made them great and brought them to the AFC Championship game just by being a steamrolling animal.
Yeah,
and they got an offense around it.
They got solid.
You got A.J. Brown blew up in his rookie year.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
His career. But you got to think, that wouldn't have happened unless you had your number one option on offense. If it wasn't for Derrick Henry, none of that is possible.
And that line's still intact. Their defense is underrated, I think.
Well, they lost Conklin. They lost Conklin. They lost.
Oh, true.
Yeah, but I think they'll be okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. One thing I will say is this was the tier I saw them as. I think their top 4 are just a tier to himself. Like, I thought they were head and shoulders everywhere else. So, with that said, on to your top 3.
Yeah.
So, number 3, he finally has a challenger for biggest quads in the NFL with A.J. Dillon.
Cool.
Interesting.
He has been – and I'll tell you this. He actually started before I looked into this at number 2. But then as I started dissecting, I think I was unfair to who I had at number 2 with the consistency he had. But I'll tell you that at number 3, Saquads, he is just such a specimen that is physically he can do it all. Great runner, runs for power, amazing. Put his foot in the ground, stop on a dime, can catch balls out of the backfield. I was so happy that he went number 2 overall because I hate when we go into these drafts and we're like, well, we have to take a quarterback high, and we have to take a tackle high, and we can't take a running back before number 15. Because I think he's such a unique guy, and he brings so much to the table. I just want to see more from that offense. The Giants' offense has just been disappointing. And it's not that I don't think if you put him on a different team, he couldn't put up, great numbers. But the thing is, he's not on a different team. He's on the Giants, so I got to live with the results that he puts up on the Giants.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I had Saquon at 3 too. You hit the nail right on the head. I'm assuming Dakota, with his, upset grin and shaking of head, also had Saquon at 3.
No, I actually don't.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow.
What did you cheated on my top 10 for this long?
I was tired of looking off your
Yeah,
tests, and I was like,
teacher
I need to
caught
get
on.
an A. I need to check. Make sure my answers are correct.
The teacher realized that the first 50 questions you already cheated on. Let me change it up on the last 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, so on to Saquon, obviously Nick hit a couple points. A couple of things that surprised me was last year's rookie year, the dude had 91 receptions. Like, that's insane. That's like a number 1 wide receiver production. That is incredible. That's just mind-blowing. He was the offense last year. Obviously, you mentioned the team sucked. There's not much. They still had, I think it was Eli's last year. The offensive line didn't exist, and there was no weapons around him. They're slowly making their way a little bit better. I don't think the Giants are much better than where they were last year. I still think they're a bad team, but he is clearly a franchise cornerstone that you can build around. He is an offense. He's a running back that is an offense. You can just build an offense around him. I think he would be fine on any team, any scheme. It didn't really matter. He's incredibly young. He's already dominated this long. He gives you everything you could possibly want: the athleticism, the ability to catch, the ability to run, the ability to break tackles, the ability to division. Just everything is right there. He could get a little bit better at pass protecting, which is fine. I don't think there's many young running backs that are good at pass protection. I think that's something you just grow into and you learn and you get used to it. But the guy's a stud. I had him at 3, and really the only reason I had him at 3 was because his team's a joke and he hasn't been able to do anything that mattered for his entire career. Like, everything he's done hasn't mattered because the Giants don't do anything. They suck. One other point I'll mention before we let Dakota, spew his nonsense, is that you mentioned that, most teams don't draft running backs very high. My top 3 picks, and I'm assuming all 3 of our top 3 picks, were all top 10 draft picks at running back. I'm the biggest believer.
Besides those 3, I think everyone else was like second round or.
Oh yeah, they're right there. Yeah. I mean, I'm the biggest believer that running backs are worth the money. Now, my point is, you always hear is an average running back could do exactly what any other running back could be. So I looked up, of the 173 running backs under contract currently, 86 would be the nice, median in the middle there. So 86 running back salary-wise. So this is per year salary-wise. You have Corey Clement, Raymond Calais on the Buccaneers, and you have DJ Foster on the Cardinals. Those are your mid-average salary-wise running backs. Okay. And now we'll get to the top 2 because the top 2 running backs that I have are the top 2 highest paid running backs. And Saquon's not there yet, but he will be. Like, these running backs, you can't tell me that you can put Corey Clement in and he'll do what Saquon Barkley can do, or he'll do what Derrick Henry can do, or he'll do what Ezekiel Elliott can do. They can't. These running backs are their own offense. They bring a dimension that other teams can't have. It's foolish not to invest in the position. It's foolish to invest in the position when you're a bad team. But when you're a good team looking to make the next step, I'd go running back heavy. That's the piece that makes you a better team. It's just a part of the offense. Everyone needs and strives and goes for a quarterback. They all look for the offensive tackles and wide receivers, but most of them will ignore running backs. And you know what? Some of these, like you're talking Saquon, Derrick Henry, they are their offense. They are the entire offense.
This is true. So to kind of transition into my number 3, who I guess is y'all's number 2, unless maybe you don't like him that much. This guy, you just hear me out for a second, but he's a 2-time rushing champ, right?
You're an idiot.
A 2-time All-Pro, a 3-time Pro Bowler, and he's played all 16 games 4 straight years. However, I don't think he's better than Saquon Barkley, because if I was starting a team right now and I was like GM mode, like, the way Nick was looking at it, I would want Saquon over Zeke. But I had Zeke at number 3. I mean, as much as it pains me to say it, he's fucking legit. Like, was awesome at Ohio State. Came into the league and had 1,600 rushing yards as a rookie. Granted, Cowboys have a great line, but even though if you have a great line, doesn't mean your running back is going to be able to get it done. I just think, his talent is crazy. He's got speed, strength, and catch. I've seen him block pretty well too at times too. So I think he's just a really great all-around player. That, two-time rushing champ is, in 4 years, or 5 years. That's a good future already building up. So
I will fact check you on one thing before Nick tells us their number two. He hasn't missed any game due to injury, but he did get suspended for 6 games, so he has not played
2017. Yes,
right,
that was my thing.
You know what? I was nice because most of the time I would have cut him off then, but I let him finish.
Look, man, I'm just reading off the paper what I wrote. So
yeah, minus those 6 games he didn't play, and it wasn't like he was suspended 1 game. 6 games is a lot of time.
That's a flag. Saquon wasn't suspended, so.
Yeah, but you know what? I think this past year. Well, I mean, if you take away the suspension year, he's won 2 rushing titles out of 3 possible years outside of that. That's pretty freaking good. So, but Nick, go ahead.
Shock the world, Nick. Who's at number 2?
Well, at number 2, I had Ezekiel Elliott, and so what I was gonna say, the guy over his 4-year career is averaging 1,350 rushing yards a season. 1,350, and one of those seasons he played 10 games, and in those 10 games. He averaged 98 yards a game. He had 983 rushing yards. He didn't play in 6 games.
Was that the 2,000 scrimmage yard season?
It's 2017. He played in 10 games. He had 983.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He had 983 rushing yards. How many guys play every game and can't get to 1,000? He almost
especially at a running back.
The guy is the absolute model of consistency. I mean. Yeah. You go 1,600 your first year. Your second year only play 10 games. You get 983. Then you go for 1,434. Then you go for 1,357. He plays by one of the best lines in the NFL. And he catches the ball too. 420 receiving yards, 54 receptions. While I like Saquon, and this is where I talk about in betting and in legitimate rankings, you can't put who you like over who produces more. Okay, yeah. I like Saquon. Okay, but the reality is Zeke has put up better numbers for longer, more consistently.
I mean, yeah, but you can't compare that Giants offense to the Cowboys offense. That's definitely
all right.
But where does he play? But where does he play? I don't want to hear, Bradley Beal is a better player than LeBron James, but they're not in the play. I don't want to hear that. Where do you play? It's what you're going to do this year.
So I know, Nick, I actually couldn't agree with you more. I also had Zeke at 2 because I'm not an idiot. A couple of things. Obviously, I mean, most of you said it. 2-time rushing champion. We're not going to ignore that. But he was a rushing champion his rookie year. I know the offense line was amazing, but to be a leader of anything as a rookie is impressive. You know what? I lied to the class. Dakota triggered me. I have a video. There is another reason why I took
you
Zeke
just
over
looked up
Elliott.
a video, but okay.
No. I knew about this video, but I didn't think I would actually have to use it until you mentioned something. So I said the biggest weakness of Saquon Barkley was his blocking. Zeke can block very well. And that's one of his biggest strengths, I would actually say.
This looks like a Saquon highlight.
Look at Saquon right here. This is Saquon, as you might know. We're going to watch him try to look at Jamal Adams here. He's going to run. Saquon's going to try to block, completely miss him, and then they're going to take the ball.
That's Jamal Adams.
He's a safety. He's not a freaking edge rusher.
Our number 1 safety. It's Jamal Adams.
If you can't block a safety, you can't block anyone.
Oh, my God. Did you have the highlight of Saquon jumping over a guy who was standing straight up?
That's irrelevant to blocking. I'm talking about blocking. Zeke is an incredible pass blocker. He blocks very well. And you say, Jamal Adams, all this. Dude, he's a safety. If you can't block Jamal Adams, you can't block Von Miller. You cannot
No, he should have blocked him. I agree.
Block T.J. Watt or Aaron Donald. He will get better at that. I think he will. But Zeke is already much better. Zeke's got 2-time rushing champion. And plus, I have more faith in the Cowboys offense going forward than I do the Giants. The Giants' offense line, even though they've thrown a ton of money into it with Solder, they traded for Zeitler, and they drafted Will Hernandez. I still have more faith in the Cowboys' offense line than I Giants do, and Travis Frederick retired. Zeke is going to be all fine. His offense line is great. The offense around him got better. Saquon is still dealing with a middling offense that they're still trying to build around. Zeke, I still think, is the better runner. Dude's a stud. He runs people over. He's agile. He brings a little bit to the passing game, and he can block. He's all around a very good running back. And he's been a great running back since he's entered the league. He's consistent. Obviously, the only games he's missed is when he gets suspended. But you want to talk about, he led the league 3 years out of his 4 in yards per game. Like, that's not something you can just make believe. He's getting better. 54 receptions last year, 77 the year before that. He's improving his game. You forget that it's only his 4 years in the NFL because he's a 2-time rushing champion and not a 2-time All-Pro or whatever it is.
I mean, I had him at 3 because he's great. I'm saying straight up, you give me I feel like if you swap them, like we've had this conversation before, if you put Saquon on the Cowboys, Zeke on the Giants, I don't think Zeke would see the same production. Because you see Cowboys backups still, there's been Cowboys backups that get 100-yard games. Now, that's not taking away from Zeke. Zeke is great. And I think, he'll continue to be.
I don't know. Zeke was drafted 4th overall. The Cowboys were not a good team when he entered the league, and he won the rushing title. I mean, don't get me wrong. They got Dak in the same draft, so getting a franchise quarterback that same draft and he playing the rookie year helped them a lot. But it was not a good team that drafted him. The Giants weren't a good team when they drafted Saquon.
If you're a defense, you got to account for Amari Cooper. You got to account for Zeke. You got to account for Dak because he can run.
Amari's only been there for
Amari wasn't there when Zeke won the rushing titles.
I mean, I'm talking right now because you always like to talk present. You're accounting for CeeDee Lamb now, Michael Gallup now. Who do the Giants have that you have to account for besides Saquon?
You're helping my argument.
No,
that doesn't help the argument.
I'm choosing Zeke because I think he has a better future ahead of him. That was my main argument. Is because no matter what the Giants do, they still suck.
Can we take a moment? The Hall of Fame, when they go to vote on the people who played right now, they don't go, well, if he got to play on this team. No, they say, what is your body of work?
Yeah.
What did you do? Not did you get to go to this team? Not did you get to have this situation? What did you do with what you had?
And Saquon's done a lot with what he's
hit it on the head. They were both top 5 picks drafted by bad teams. They both went to bad situations. Different situations, but they were both top 5 picks. Neither of these teams were good. It wasn't like they were drafting, later in the first round they got them. And Zeke has just thrived.
Okay, and this is as an individual player. And as an individual player, I think Saquon has a higher ceiling as a pure running back than Ezekiel Elliott does.
Well, Zeke ran for 2 rushing titles in his first 3 years, so his ceiling must be up to moon.
Can we take a moment? Can we take one moment? Okay, I've heard Zeke is an improving pass catcher. I've heard a couple times.
Yeah.
The receiving numbers difference between Zeke and Saquon is 18 receiving yards, the same amount of touchdowns, and 2 receptions. So if you feel like Saquon's a good dual threat, then you have to also say that Zeke is a good dual threat because they have identical receiving yards, and Zeke has 350 plus more rushing yards. So how do you have the same receiving yards, 30% more rushing yards, but you're not a better player? I don't get that.
So real quick, before I let Nick finish up with his number 1, I just want to say one thing.
I need to still talk about Saquon.
Fine. We'll let you foolishly say what you want to say. Zeke has had more than 300 rushing attempts 3 out of his 4 years. Obviously, the 1 year he didn't do it was the 6 games he got suspended that Gazelle never heard of. With that said, he doesn't miss games because of injury. Saquon got hurt this year in his second year in the NFL.
Because he's the only one touching the ball.
Excuse me. I let you talk. Zeke had 300 rushing attempts 3 out of his 4 years. What do you mean he's the only one touching the ball? Zeke has touched the ball nearly 1,000 times in 3 years.
Saquon
and he doesn't miss time because of injury. And
rookie year, Saquon had a 5 yards per carry average. Second year, 4.6. Zeke had 5.1. That's hella great for his rookie year. Very similar to Saquon. Then last year, 4.5. 4.6 for Saquon. They're almost you can flip a coin. I don't have a problem.
See, but the thing is, the 2 rushing titles. That's
he also has 2 more years. Like,
Yep. But he won the rushing title here, so Saquon is behind by 1 rushing title already.
all right, let's talk numbers then. So Saquon Barkley's.
Listen, Saquon has never gone for 300 rushing attempts a year. He's won for 261 his rookie year and 217 this past year when he got injured.
Yeah.
Zeke has gone for over 300 rushing attempts 3 out of 4 years. You hear when a running back has 300 rushing attempts, next year he's going to suck. He's going to get hurt. Zeke hasn't missed a beat, and he's done it 3 times. That consistency you can not ignore. The only time he missed a game was because he got suspended for being an idiot. But go ahead. Tell me something that I don't already know.
Look, it's hard to evaluate them, but I'm factoring in the fact that the Cowboys are just a lot better of an offensive team. Saquon's not going to get as many touches because he's not going to have – the Giants' offense isn't going to be on the field as much. You know, look, you want to talk numbers, comparison? This is combine numbers, all right?
Oh, combine numbers. These are legit. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why didn't you should have told me – wait. You should have told me we'd be stretching for these rankings. Toe touches, some hip flexors, all that before we
Wait. You didn't have Byron Jones in your top DBs. Don't bring out combine numbers.
Yeah, without John Ross didn't make the top 10 wide receivers. I don't want to hear anything about the combine. That was 3 years ago.
No, this is just purely to look at their how they were coming out of college physically. So Saquon 6'0", Zeke 6'0". Zeke was 225, Saquon's 230. I think they're like basically still the same now. Yeah. Zeke had 4.47 40-yard dash and a 31-inch vertical. All right.
Yes.
Saquon had a 4.41 40-yard dash and a 41-inch vertical. So to me, look, yeah, Zeke has the edge in blocking. Zeke has the edge in catching, which you could say he's better than Barkley because he's more well-rounded. That's fine.
No, that's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that. But I'm saying you're taking away from Saquon because you're saying he plays on the Giants and his offense is not as good. So he doesn't get as much, opportunities to flourish.
See, you're mentioning the vertical jump and their 10-yard, shuttle. I don't remember Saquon Barkley winning a rushing title when he was jumping that vertical jump.
I've seen Saquon fight for more yards than I've seen plenty of Zeke having a fucking lane that I could run through. Well,
that's debatable.
Like I don't know. To me, watching Saquon play, he's one of the smoothest runners. He's so fluid with his cuts. He's very pure in between the tackles. Can go off tackle. I look at him and say I would rather have that running back. He seems to have the mentality that he could get better at blocking because he is a little more he's a little bigger than Zeke. Like I said, I'm not saying you guys are wrong for having the two. I'm just saying I personally like Saquon better.
You know the argument that you just made between the two of them. I have heard so many people say that if Deshaun Watson went to the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes to the Texans, then Deshaun Watson would have got this major deal and they would be a better player. But like you can't. This coulda, woulda, shoulda is not what's playing out. Okay, like Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes has the great career. Patrick Mahomes was the MVP. Deshaun Watson, great player. Love him a lot. But he's on the Texans. That's his team. So I can't say you're going to be the second best quarterback in the NFL if you don't have weapons. So I can't say that you're going to be the second best running back in the NFL if you have a worse line. Like your argument is we can't count it against them. But the problem is their numbers at the end of the year matter based on where they play. So that can't be like a handicap. That's got to be what's going to set you up to have the year you're going to have.
Listen. I got nothing more to say. I think I said what I needed to be.
It's going to be a revolving door. All I'm saying is that that whole thing. I get it. You can't say what if he was on this team and what if he was on that team. But like at the end of the day, if you have a great player helping you, they have great offensive linemen pushing the way for Zeke. If some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time never had any, like besides like Brady. Most great quarterbacks had at least one receiver that they relied on, one tight end that they relied on. It's like you need players around you, and I just think Saquon does more with less is all I'm saying.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? We listened to your argument. Whether we believe it or not, is up for discussion.
All right, let's move on to happier thoughts. Nick,
all right, number one. This should be this has got to be like this is like the 8th week in a row where we all
I don't think rarely do we not have the same number one.
So all right, Nick, start this off.
So number one, quick anecdote. I am a Denver Bronco fan, and my first favorite Bronco, but he was a guy I liked really early on, was the father of this player. The Broncos, before the draft, were getting ready to try to trade up to get him because of the connection.
Didn't think I'd be hearing a John McCaffrey, reference
Ed McCaffrey.
this.
It's Ed McCaffrey.
Ed McCaffrey. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Tim.
You're right.
Fact check, Tim.
No,
Fact
I
check.
dropped the ball. I thought I dropped the ball.
So, but they end up not being able to move up to get him. And he's gone on to have what I would argue was one of the most amazing dual threat seasons. I mean, 1,387 rushing yards, 15 rushing touchdowns, with 1,005 receiving yards, another 4 touchdowns, 116 receptions, and 107 receptions in 2018 goes to Run CMC Christian McCaffrey.
The GOAT.
I had him at 1-2. Obviously, Nick had a great lead up, and I'm sure Dakota will tell us some nonsense that we don't need to hear. But I will make this one short because I think we all understand that he's amazing. I don't think anyone will argue that he's the number one running back. Obviously, at 116 receptions, that ties the record for a non-wide receiver in receptions per year with Ertz. He had 1,005 yards receiving. Just to put it in perspective, DJ Chark, a number one wide receiver in the NFL, had 1,008. Mike Williams, a very good number 2 wide receiver in the NFL, had 1,001. And, everyone's favorite boy that loves to kill me because I didn't put him as top 10, had 1,035, 30 yards more than CMC, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. These are number 1 wide receivers, or in Mike Williams' case, the number 2 that he's competing with. He was a top 3 running back in rushing yards with 1,387, as Nick said. The guy's a stud. He's a running back you build your offense around. Obviously, he deserves the contract that he got. There's not much more to say. I had him in my fantasy team this year, and I will tell you one thing. If there's one person that understands how good he is, it's me, because I made a lot of bad decisions on that fantasy team, and the only reason I stood a chance that year was because McCaffrey was putting up like 40 a game.
Yep.
So while I do assume that Dakota made a lot of horrific mistakes in fantasy and CMC had to bail him out, but tell us something new there, Dakota. Tell us something good about your boy that you're wearing on your back.
I wasn't listening to half of what you said because most of what you say is garbage. But did you point out anything about his fantasy? Fantasy numbers?
I literally just pointed out the fact that I had him on my team, and you were like, same.
Well, okay. Well, I don't know if I'm going to repeat here, but when I went to go put in our draft order for our league, there was a video that came up, and they're talking about CMC and why he should be everyone's number 1 pick, and they were saying how if you took away all of his rushing yards and only his receiving yards, he would have finished number 12 in fantasy as a wide receiver.
He put up number 1 wide receiver numbers with being a top 3 running back.
And if you took away all of his receiving yards and he solely ran the ball, it would have been the number 13 running back.
I don't know what else you need. He like we said with Aaron Jones, he tied the league in total touchdowns on a team that really wasn't that good. Like, they had a lot of holes. After Kyle Allen had his fun in the first couple of games and they realized that he sucked, there wasn't much that.
I mean, I like the receivers, but that offense runs through CMC.
Oh, he is the offense.
Yeah.
With Teddy Bridgewater on the helm, I expect him to be even more the offense. He's a number 1 wide receiver, and he's a number 1 runner. He's a top 3 running back and a number 1 wide receiver on most teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. I think that might have been the easiest number 1 we've come across.
And only 1 fumble the whole year last year.
That's true.
And he had how many touches? 287 rushes and 116 receptions. That's
loves
impressive.
touching the ball. Loves touching the ball.
2 things, real quick.
Go ahead.
So his past season is the hold on one sec. 3rd most yards from scrimmage in a season, behind only Chris Johnson in 2009 when he had 2,509 yards, and then Marshall. Yeah, and then Marshall Faulk in '99 had 2,429 yards.
He was the last 1,000 running back.
What's that?
He was the last 1,000 running back.
Yeah, I guess so.
LT,
unsurprised. LT was on this list, the top 10 list, twice for this. And then Marcus Allen, AP, of course, tied Marcus Allen somehow, exact same amount of yards. And then Tiki Barber at number 4 was kind of surprising. But the one last thing I wanted to say before we wrap things up. So that poll I did on my –
Oh, yeah, when you decided to cheat and couldn't decide your own top 10s, so you had your Instagram followers decide it for you?
Shut up. I told Nick, I said I finished my list, and then I went back and grabbed all the stats. So I basically, like, cooped together players that were, like, in the same level, like there's tier levels, and then based off that, who beat who also determined ranking. So according to the fans – so we actually had a tie for Saquon and Christian McCaffrey, but Saquon had more overwhelming victories. Like he was picked more often than CMC was. So we had Saquon at 1, then 2 was McCaffrey, and 3 we had Derrick Henry.
I can live with that. No, McCaffrey's number 1. I don't want to hear anything else besides McCaffrey number 1.
Number 4 was Zeke, and then 5 we had Dalvin Cook.
I can live with it.
6 was Nick Chubb.
I can live with it.
7
I had them switched in.
7 was Kamara.
Okay.
This is like my list.
And this is when it gets interesting. 8 was Miles Sanders.
Oh, stop.
Oh, see, you know what? Me as being a huge Eagles fan, originally he was in my top 10, but then I did research. Like,
I couldn't put him in yet.
Can't even justify this.
9 was Josh Jacobs. And then 10 was Todd Gurley.
You know what? I don't hate that, though. I like Jacobs a lot. Honestly, I do. But
I do too, yeah. I think he's got a slight edge over Miles Sanders.
You know, the reason that I put Fournette ahead of Jacobs was because I don't think Fournette is going to be on the Jaguars in the year, and I think whatever team he goes to, he's going to flourish. He's such a good player, but he's just on such a horrible franchise.
So I'll tell you I had Gurley at 13, obviously because of the injury. I wasn't even going to, like, touch him in the top 10. But he's never gone to a system where he's had – teams have to worry about a quarterback and a receiver the way that he has in Atlanta. Yeah. And if he goes there and he's healthy and you have to worry about Julio and Calvin Ridley and Matt Ryan, has a 4,500 passing yard season, Gurley could go quietly put up a 1,200, 1,300 yard season. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
I like Gurley a lot. I agree. I had him in that, like, 12, 13 range. My whole thing was that McVay offense, when McVay was an offensive genius and they went and embarrassed themselves in the Super Bowl, their offense ran through Todd Gurley, and they managed to run a couple play action passes off of Todd Gurley's running ability. It's almost like what Derrick Henry is to the Titans, but to a lesser extent, because I think the Rams were a better offense than the Titans are. But it was just Todd Gurley was so amazing that he made that offense work. Without Todd Gurley, the Rams are awful. They haven't done anything since the Super Bowl. Since he started falling back and he got hurt, they've really struggled. Without a number 1 running back, McVay's offense struggles because they need a guy to set up the play action, to set up the passing game. Jared Goff is not a quarterback and can take over himself. He needs an elite running back next to him, just like Ryan Tannehill had with Derrick Henry. And I think it became apparent once Todd Gurley started slowing down, even in the Super Bowl run. Once he was out for the NFC Championship game and didn't play much in the Super Bowl, it was obvious this was not the same Rams team. Can we
just take a moment? I listen to every podcast all the time.
Appreciate that.
Love it. Appreciate you.
And I follow all the lists, and I got to tell you, I feel like this running back list has the best chance that a year from now, 5 to 10 could be different. I think 5 to 10 of any of the positions have the best chance that we could come back a year from now. I think top 4 is pretty solid. It's going to take a very crazy thing for top 4 to change. But 5 to 10, I mean, Miles Sanders could jump in at number 10. Todd Gurley could show us that he's something different.
Your boy Jacobs.
Fournette could go to some great situation.
Yeah, I like Jacobs. I think he's in a good – but even the rookie class. This is a very top-notch running back-heavy rookie class. I love Jonathan Taylor this year. I think if at one point he will beat out Mac and he'll play behind that great offensive line.
I think so too. And I think Edwards-Helaire could have monster numbers.
If you play next to Mahomes, you'll be fine. I like Swift too. I don't love where he went. I don't love him on the Lions, but I like Swift as a player. Dobbins on the Ravens, I think, will be really good as well.
Yeah.
How many opportunities he gets will be, up for discussion. He might just take that Gus Edwards role with Ingram and Lamar there, but I think he grows into something good. This rookie class could really – I wouldn't be surprised if we see 1 or 2 names from this rookie class in that top 10 next year.
DeAndre Swift is a Philly boy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't know that until draft night, but I do now.
St. Joe's Prep.
Yeah.
Pride of St. Joe's Prep.
Hey, Saquon Barkley was from Whitehall, right outside Allentown. So, Nick, any thoughts on Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay out in Denver?
So, I look into the season, and I feel like if you're the Broncos, their offense has such an opportunity to just be a gunslinging, throw the ball, pound the rock. The question is going to be, what Melvin Gordon are the Broncos getting, and how does Philip Lindsay do sharing the rock? Does that affect him mentally? Is he cool with that? And what's going to happen with Royce Freeman? Like, Royce Freeman was supposed to be what Philip Lindsay is. Don't forget their third running back is still a guy who could be a trade asset, or maybe this is the year things click, and maybe they have the best running back committee in the NFL to go along with the best young trio of receivers. The only thing that's going to tell is what Garrett Bowles does this year. When their left tackle is so up in the air.
He is if he stopped getting penalties on him, he wouldn't be so bad. Guy
and
loves to do illegal things.
Yeah, and Drew, and I will tell you, on draft night, this is actually really cool. So I was at the red carpet for the NFL draft, and Garrett Bowles was there with his wife and his son in matching suits. And I told him that he was coming to Denver. And when they announced that he picked him, I could not believe it, because I go, in the back of Garrett Bowles' mind right now, he's going, that random Philly guy with the Denver Broncos Champ Bailey jersey on told me I was going to Denver. And so that was cool.
So, let me get some lottery numbers from that guy next time. I ending on one thing just because I'm about to pee my pants. I like Gordon. I had him on my fantasy team a couple of years ago. I think he's very good. I thought the holdout was a complete mistake. I think Le'Veon Bell just showcased everyone that holding out is not a good idea.
Dalvin Cook might hold out.
No. I think they resurrected that one. I think they did whatever they had to do on his contract. I heard he's going to play. But it's just, I think Gordon's a very good player. I think he hurt his own value on sitting out. I think that was a foolish mistake on his own part. He let Eckler go out there and dominate. Yeah. And then he came back and it just never fit. I like Gordon on the Broncos. I think he takes the mantle. I don't know what Lindsay will do. I've never been that high on Lindsay. I think he's made the most of his opportunity. He's been pretty solid. I know he's ran for 1,000 yards back-to-back, but I think when it comes down to quality of running back, Melvin Gordon is a much better quality of running back than Lindsay is. And I'd be excited. Plus, he gives you a little bit of pass-catching ability.
All right. So that was that went really smooth for a while, and then once we got to Zeke Saquon, my shit got off the rails.
Well, that's because you agreed with me for 8 of the 10 picks. I mean,
you fucking stole my list.
You finally caught on, man. I want my name in the works cited.
Oh my god.
Let me just say, quote me next time.
I think I can speak for all of us saying I'm so happy football's back. I hope that I hope that we get a full season.
No outbreaks, no corona. Just
I just want to get my Sundays back. Get a new TV setup for the season. Just ready for Sundays.
Ready to rock and roll.
Oh yeah, how big is that TV now?
65.
Yeah, you're gonna be sitting pretty.
I'm so excited. This is my first year where I can have the Eagles on local TV. I don't have to go streaming the Eagles off of some weird Chinese ridiculous website.
Yeah, you were in Florida for a while, buddy.
Yeah, the Jaguars on local TV. Do I want to watch the freaking Jaguars? Does anyone want to watch the Jaguars? No, I don't.
They don't watch the Jaguars in Jacksonville.
Of course they don't.
Well, maybe that's why for your top 10, you got to see him so much.
You know what? Probably.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Good to talk to you.
Peace out.
Take it easy.
Have a good night.